Good. So with this, I take an opportunity on behalf of participants, organizers to thank Dr. Kalyan. So for an excellent presentation and insights about the overview of supply chain, including how the learning of supply chain should take place. So that is really very, very encouraging for supply chain engineers. Okay,
Thank you,
so
Abhi.
now I would like to invite Mr. Alex Goma. Alexander Goma is joining from, I think you are in Nigeria still. Maybe you keep traveling, Alex. Okay, so
Yes,
each time when I talk to you, you keep traveling. So the topic we are talking is very, very important for supply chain, which is last mile delivery, redefining customer expectations in emerging markets. I think this is the topic what even myself I'm discussing with my team about this topic, Alex. So it happens to be that you are giving a lecture on this today. So it will be very encouraging for us to hear you and interact. Okay, so let me give a quick round of introduction to Alex. Alex is an accomplished expert with extensive experience in management, sales and trade marketing, and customer logistics within FMCG sector. Passionate about building sustainable high-performance organizations, and he had led many teams to launch new brands, expand new markets, and increase market share, to boost sales, and drive profitability. So, with various capacities, Alex has really proved one time and again that how he can add value and he can transform organizations. So, this topic of last mile delivery is very, very important at this point of time. And it is very important for every organization in the supply chain. So, I think this is an opportunity for all of us to hear directly from Alex Goma. So, over to you, sir. So, welcome, and please introduce yourself a little so that people are aware of it.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, and also
And can you see?
we can see.
Can you see my screen?
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay. It's still morning in Lagos, Nigeria. Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon or good evening, wherever you may be. It's a pleasure to share on last mile delivery, how we can meet the expectations of the customer in emerging markets. And there's more of a perspective from Nigeria, but I think it is something that applies, especially in markets where there are similarities. So we're just going to look at understanding emerging markets. What are some of the challenges in last mile? Some suggestions for how to succeed, and then examples of certain companies that are beginning to add value in this space, and then what's the future of last mile. But just to summarize, I think everybody has been talking about supply chain. Last mile is the final stage of the supply chain process where everything starting from the producer ends up in the hands of the consumer. And it's been said in a lot of papers and lots of analysis done with different companies that this is the most critical and the most cost-intensive segment of the supply chain. Typically, I think it's common knowledge from one of my previous backgrounds that there are three main areas where every company in trying to win has to be very successful at. The first is the battle for the mind of the consumer, which is where your marketing and all the other things that you do to get people to actually have decided to vote for your product or service in their mind. The second is at the point where they will either experience your service or the product that you have to offer. And this is where the last mile comes in, because whatever investments you've made in the first point where you won the battle of the mind of the consumer, if you're not available for your product or service to be voted on, then your investment at the first stage has actually become a waste. And the last, of course, is based on the fact that once the consumer experiences the product or service, does it deliver on the promise? So that last mile is part of the focus on ensuring that the customer gets what he requires, either the service or the product delivered. And here you have to balance between cost and speed. And so there's always a challenge. I think previous speakers have spoken about different stages of the supply chain and some of the cost elements associated. If you don't have the right demand, you can always have a problem with inventory, can lead to cost if you don't have the right logistics to supply. So balancing all of this is something that is critical for profitability and customer service. So optimizing this stage directly impacts your service levels and profitability. But in emerging markets, there are quite a number of gaps. You know, some of the speakers have spoken about some of the technology that is being applied in different locations, robotics, automated sorting. Yes, you will find some elements of this in a few establishments, but most establishments are still very manual. They still have to rely on the human interpretation of certain pieces of data. And of course, there are certain challenges that are coming from the external environment that makes this tough. First one is infrastructure, especially if I look at Nigeria and maybe some parts of sub-Saharan Africa, where road infrastructure is a challenge, warehouse infrastructure is a challenge, the quality of the logistics equipment you have is a challenge, it therefore becomes very expensive. You have large geographies where you're trying to manage how to access or reach customers in those places. There's also a simple, though very common issue with addressing. So where you don't have the right kind of addressing for customers' locations or consumer locations, it's very difficult for you to therefore become very effective, especially when you're using automated solutions to reach out to those customers. So the address or the postcode is rather a small expanse of geography rather than a specific location. Technology barriers driven by quality of internet, access to certain places, therefore, doesn't allow for the most efficient use. And then, of course, culture and behaviors. These are places where customers prefer to manage transactions based on cash and would rather pay on delivery. They want to see the product first before they're satisfied that, okay, this is something that I want to pay for. And of course, the distances and the population density challenges and the differences between urban and rural, and therefore the cost to serve. But despite these challenges, there are lots of organizations that have built structures, put in place things, and have actually been able to grow market share, drive operational efficiency and customer loyalty and leadership. So it's important to understand these challenges, but not to be constrained by them, because by looking at them separately, you can actually look at how you can tap these challenges into opportunities that help you drive share and gain leadership within the market. So what are some of the characteristics that you find in these markets? Again, like I said, I'm using Nigeria as more of a case study. Very high population. I think Nigeria is similar to India, but India, of course, is probably about 5 or 6 times more in terms of population. It's a highly fragmented retail structure. And then, of course, you have a huge disparity in terms of the urban and the rural centers. So therefore, the quality of service or options available at urban are very, very different from those that are available at rural. In terms of behaviors, because of the size of the population, the economic strata of the population, you have a lot more frequent purchases. There are lots of purchases that are smaller sizes because of the fact that a lot of people don't earn their money on a regular basis and therefore just have to keep on buying. So you have the pay as you go, small sachets, small sizes. Basically, people are replenishing or buying whatever they require on a daily basis. When you add up the cost that they pay per gram or per kg, they actually end up paying more. You would have thought that, okay, is it not smarter to buy larger quantities because you save more? It's not because they're not smart. It's simply the fact that they don't have the bulk money at once to buy everything that they need at once. So they have to make the purchases on a day-to-day basis. There are people who start their day with 0 naira or dollar in their pocket, but by the first hour, 2 hours, they've earned enough money to be able to get breakfast, and under 3 hours, enough money for dinner. And then, of course, towards the end of the day, they have money to buy what they're going to require, especially if they have a family for the next day. So they're living by day. With the advent of technology, mobile, and things, we see an increasing digitization and also an adoption of mobile commerce, again, driven by the fact that, okay, mobile money is beginning to expand, easier for you to pay money across using your phones. And as a result of that, okay, it is creating opportunities for commerce, especially e-commerce, or a mixture of both and the regular models where the transactions can happen, the payments can happen via digital, even though the service deliveries happen physically. Also, whilst people are looking at costs, there's increase in competition and varieties being offered across different product segments. Therefore, it is not just only affordability that is critical, but also service levels and reliability. So we see some shifts emerging where the focus is not just on how affordable, but is whether the service or the product is convenient and reliable. There's an emphasis on transparency and tracking, especially where trust is involved. So when people have ordered something, they're expecting to know how quickly, when it will come and where it is, and also just some assurance that everything has happened. And then increasingly, for certain categories, okay, there's a requirement for delivery direct to the consumers because people want the specialized or personalized service. So you have a mix of different kinds of retail outlets that are available and therefore are offering this kind of service and last mile delivery. Now, if I look at Nigeria population estimates, right? Nobody knows exactly how many we are, but if you extrapolate from the last census, we're circa around 220 million people within 1 million square kilometers, right? Huge number of outlets, over about 1.1 million outlets, highly fragmented, but between wholesale, open markets, and neighborhood groceries accounting for more than 80% of all commodity volumes. So the focus for most organizations have been to partner through dealers and distributors. So they have a network of distributors across the country who then serve these various channels. However, one of the things that is becoming increasingly critical is the options for consumers and how quickly or how able is the system able to ensure that you can have your assortment of products or portfolio available across the channel. So you're likely to find across most categories, the market leader and maybe 1 or 2 more players in the market having widespread distribution, and then a lot of other small players just having limited distribution because the cost to serve is massive. For you to cover this range of outlets means that it's a huge cost to serve. So a lot of companies will rather rely on partners who ship direct to wholesale, and then wholesale has a way of finding it across the large number of retailers. But what this means is that the more well-known products are the ones that get better service through this channel. So launching a new brand or a new product makes it a lot more difficult, especially if you don't have access to the last mile or how you can enhance your product offering at that last stage. Again, what are some of the challenges that are involved? So this is a typical example of one of the roads. So a journey that is, yes?
Slide, if I can just previous slide. Yeah.
Previous slide, okay?
Okay. Okay. Yeah. 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 Clear. Clear. Clear.
So there
Yeah.
are various channels, under those special channels, they are, maybe I might just give a bit of a description, right?
Yeah.
There are
Please.
some that are specialized, maybe kiosk, hawkers, food specific channels, Horeca, for example, or maybe pharmacies and things like that. Modern trade is largely, there are not very few chains, ShopRite from South Africa, Spar, but limited number of outlets, and then a lot of local chains that are coming with anywhere between 5 to 20 outlets, and a lot of standalone outlets. The open markets, just large, wide expanse of lands with lots of shops, typically situated around the city centers. So the access to consumers from across major cities is easy. It's just simply one drop of transportation to get you there. The cost to serve is very low because infrastructure is not necessarily good, little or no power. So basically operate within the daylight hours. But then you have virtually everything you want to buy within the open market. The way I summarize it, I say the open market is the Walmart of Nigeria, because you have virtually everything you want to buy within one roof. It's just that each shop is owned by a different owner. So you're having to deal with different people, but then you have a wide assortment or variety of products at your disposal. Until a few years ago, it used to be about 80% of the volume, but over the years, with the improvements and opening of neighborhood stores and modern trade, that number is whittling down to where it is somewhere between 40 and 50% of the commodity, depending on the category. So neighborhood stores are becoming increasingly important. Modern trade, yes, especially when you're looking at your AB, C1 consumers, but also giving you an access to sampling and trial and doing some kind of consumer activations in those particular channels. Wholesalers are widespread. Some are a blend between sell retail and sell wholesale as well, but they're able to break bulk, so which is what allows smaller retailers to sell, and therefore they can move products across state lines with limited infrastructure and using any kind of not formal transport means, but it just means that the cost to serve wholesale is usually cheaper and easier for them. So some of the challenges, right, I've alluded to them earlier, but basically infrastructure, a 3-hour journey, a 240-kilometer trip, which theoretically you can say, okay, even if you're going at 80 kilometers per hour, should take you not more than 3 hours, can be one full day because of the challenges and of the infrastructure. The road network is not well built, and therefore it adds increased cost. So you find the more formal logistics partners are very few. They charge because the infrastructure, for them to maintain the infrastructure, is very costly. The people you find who are playing these logistics roles are more local partners, and with some trucks that are older than 30 years. But somehow these trucks will manage to navigate this kind of tough terrains. We'll get there in 3 or 4 days. So your cost to serve, your reliability, and all of that is affected. You get it at a cheaper cost, but then the odds are you can have the truck break down for a couple of days before it gets there. So if you don't have inventory at the location, and therefore looking at the lead times actually become longer when you're looking at this cheaper sources of transportation. The picture on the right is just showing a particular area that has just one postcode. So the point is that the address is not one house, right? The postcode is one particular area. So if you're going to deliver using postcodes, not going to be very efficient. Yes, there's improvements, especially with advent of Google, which is helping drive street addressing, and therefore becoming much better, but it's still a challenge. Sometimes we say if you follow Google Map, you can end up at a river where there's no bridge because it doesn't really understand that there's no connection between that and the next location. So it's something that is a bit of a challenge. There's still a heavy reliance on cash, right? Face-to-face transactions. Yes, there's a challenge with digital and e-commerce because there's a common saying, what I ordered versus what I got. So the pictures look good on Instagram, the pictures look good on the website, but when you get what you're ordering, is it exactly what I want? Therefore, the preference is generally for payment on delivery. So as the logistics providers or the people who have built up systems to ensure that when the delivery is made is when they can get the payment, then both the customer or the consumer is assured, and also the logistics partner makes sure he gets his money. But this calls for payment systems, so e-commerce payment system, POS terminals. But then you have a challenge of technology. The internet is not working at that time, or you have a network failure, so you have issues and instances of payment reversals, payment not made, and therefore it becomes a huge challenge holding a delivery person because the payment has not gone through or the transaction has not gone through. And therefore, either the logistic partner has to return with the goods, which means that it will cost twice to deliver the same service. And then, of course, population density, especially in semi-urban and rural, where you have huge territories to cover in between small towns and cities and villages, therefore means that the cost to serve is often higher than normal. So what is critical for you to succeed? There are quite a number of companies that have done that. A lot of the large FMCG companies have succeeded in putting the kind of infrastructure that allows them to serve. The first thing is your own investment in infrastructure. So distribution centers at either the regional or macro level. Some of these distribution centers are owned by them. Some are owned by people who are currently investing in warehousing and logistics. Therefore, they're logistics partners who offer this service. And so you just pay for either the volume that you pass through or you pay for particular square meters that you use. But there are also company-owned resources. But over the past 20 years, more companies have been moving away from having lots of regional warehouses to where they have a few regional demand centers, and then they're building the capacity of their partners to have the capability to be able to serve them. So that's where the second point in terms of strong collaboration with local partners, where distributors put in the infrastructure, warehousing, acquiring vans with support from the companies that they're dealing with, hiring their own people to make sure that they can then do that final mile delivery. There are also certain partners that have come up that are able to deliver anything from small packages, from 0.5 to 5 kilogram packages. So companies are using a mixture of their distribution partners and some of these last mile partners to drive these deliveries. And then, of course, we see an emergence where neighborhood stores and groceries are now beginning to start to serve as collection centers. So people who have a bit more of bulk orders can actually get them delivered to a store close to them or to a logistics hub near to them, and therefore they can go and pick this. I think it's critical to also find the balance in driving efficiency and looking at the operational costs. So most models today have to be fixed because you're trying to get widespread availability for your products, and there's always a challenge between what is the lost sales I'm missing by not having my product available versus what is the cost of going to that extra outlet. There's a cost to serve higher. Rule of thumb has been to focus on roughly about 20%, 30% of the retail universe. Typically, across a number of categories, they tend to give you about 70 to 80% volume coverage of the market. And then the balance is through strategic wholesalers located across, which therefore help to cover the smaller outlets and give you that coverage. Optimizing routes, partnering with other people, so sharing resources, as well as looking at how you scale your operations strategically. So starting from a few centers and a few key cities where there's scale and volume, and then using that and expanding, and also looking at how by partnering with other companies that also have similar challenges, you can reduce the cost to serve because you're taking a broader portfolio across. There's also investment in technology and automation in terms of route marking, tracking, and ensuring reliability of delivery, pricing models that allow you to price depending on the route and therefore how expensive the route. There are certain providers of delivery services that compare prices based on surge and therefore charge higher when deliveries are being made within particular periods. Payment systems that are fast and reliable. So there are certain organizations that have come up where their payment systems are fast, reliable. By SMS, you can get confirmation of the payments almost real time. So it makes it easier for payments, especially when it comes to payments on delivery and confirmation have been done. And then, of course, adoption of mobile apps that will help drive the transactions, but also ensure tracking payments as well as driving consumer engagement as we try to ensure that this happens. So a balance of a mixture of this can guarantee you success, which is what a lot of companies have applied in Nigeria. There are quite a number of businesses in the last couple of years that have emerged. These are just some examples, but they are providing opportunities for direct to retail and also for consumer. Jumia is one, and that has opened up across a certain number of places in Africa. Key question is whether they are profitable and whether, okay, this model is going to be sustainable. I think we all know how many years it took Amazon to get to profitability. However, for items that have some value, easier to pass through this channel, things like mobile phones, appliances, anything that costs upwards of $20, equivalent of $20, easier to subsume the delivery costs from here. So these guys have actually helped certain sectors to start to expand and grow, and you can actually rely on them to give access direct to consumer. GIG Logistics used to be a transport company that used to move people across cities and then moved to include moving goods and services, and therefore it's now easy for people to move packages from 0.5 kg to as much as you want. So you can deliver to partners across different parts of the company. They have Bond Digital, have an app that is efficient in tracking, in following payment, booking systems, and all of that. So it's helped a lot of small businesses that want to ensure they can do last mile delivery to actually do. I think alongside with them are firms like Gokada, Glovo, but Glovo specializes more in food and grocery delivery. The other examples there, Kobo 360, Alezo, Omnibus, are companies that are now distributing across retail largely, but they are collating, they have a large number of retail outlets right now, maybe anywhere ranging between 30 to 60, 70,000 outlets that they cover. And basically, you can come on their platform and their platform will give access to retailers that they have, and therefore you can distribute your products to those particular customers. The key challenge is that they're still largely located within urban, maybe to some extent, some semi-urban and rural areas in some parts of the country, but they do not have widespread coverage yet, especially in places around the far north and the southeast of the company. But what a number of firms are doing are using a mixture of their own resources, their distribution partners, and these particular new emerging partners to move their business. I think people are watching to see how will they evolve and develop, and will they get the kind of coverage that gives you close to 60–70% market coverage of the business. So still a bit expensive compared to the other models, but at least these are opportunities for businesses that do not have their own infrastructure. You can actually tag in to these particular businesses and then just simply put your products within their network of outlets that they cover, and therefore you can have the access to serve. So what is the future like for this? I think it will still be hybrid. You still have a mixture of delivery via retail, but what will happen is that you will find a number of neighborhood stores actually serving as collection centers. So for consumers who order direct, they can actually collect within some of these neighborhood stores. Autonomous delivery systems, right? In certain parts of Nigeria, I think there's a company, Zipline, that has started doing certain deliveries for medical supplies in rural areas. Now, how well using drones, how well this will grow, and whether the scale to serve a huge business is something that will emerge in the near future, but it's something to watch out. I think also what has been practiced in other parts of the world, community-based last mile delivery, where people can extra income if they pick products from around where they work, for example, in the morning, and on their way back home, they can do these deliveries. However, this is dependent on trust. So until you have improvements in identity systems and security, I think this still remains an area that will not develop rapidly, because you want to ensure that the person who is delivering the product will deliver the product. Imagine somebody having to deliver a product that costs more than his 3 months' salary. What are the odds that the person will stick and make that delivery, or will not divert the product away? So these are things that I see that will come up in the near future, but we will still largely remain traditional. Technology will play a real role in routing, in payment systems. We can see that already working in ensuring that you can make orders, payments, and deliveries, but it will still largely remain a hybrid systems in the near future. Maybe in the larger modern cities, we will start to see a bit of automated systems in use, but this is still a long time from being what will be the mainstay of last mile service and delivery in places like Nigeria and sub-Saharan Africa. So in concluding, the last mile remains the most critical link that connects businesses to their customers in emerging markets like Nigeria. There are challenges, but these challenges offers opportunities. The companies that build expertise at this are the ones that will grow share and ensure that they can always have the right service levels. The focus for the business when thinking of the last mile is think of what problem are we trying to solve for the consumer, right? So in the product design and the product delivery, and then how the channel that we use, we've got to do that. So it's critical to focus on the customer, is to think about collaboration, right? Rather than competing, you can actually work with your competitors to find some opportunities and let the competition be out at the consumer face. But however, from a service level, there are opportunities for collaboration, and of course, a focus on efficiency to drive cost. Winning at the point where the consumer accesses products and service will always be a critical lever for growth. And focusing on the last mile makes a critical impact on the bottom line for every business. So I think you want to win in emerging markets. This is one of the key areas of focus, right? That's why you find a lot of companies will focus on this, because once they get this critical, it is easier for them to actually, whatever investments they make in speaking to the consumer starts to play for them. Thank you for attention. If there are any comments, thoughts, questions, willing to take them.
I have some questions,
Yes.
Alex. Now, let us say it's very interesting. Insert very nicely about the key ingredients of last mile delivery from the customer point of view. Okay, so that is something which is very important. Now, if any organization would like to embark into the last mile delivery solution as part of their process, for example, a manufacturer need a last mile delivery work for him as part of the process, or maybe you want a last mile delivery partner. So somebody wants to do a last mile delivery business. Okay, so what should he do? Okay, so how can he establish a business of last mile delivery? Okay, and also what is the if you want to do any implementation of this, so what is the step-by-step process? So how the last mile delivery is designed from the manufacturer point of view or something? What about the last mile delivery partner? Can they do themselves, or you need to find a partner? And how the technology or process will help to establish the process. So can you show some light on that, Alex?
So I think the first thing will be to understand the market and how you access the consumer, because you've got to think of, okay, how do I access? So depending on what the purpose for which you're setting up the organization is for, are you building it for your own product? So you've got to understand the customer we are targeting. Who are they, where are they, and where do they access whatever service or product that they get today? Now, like some of the data I shared, okay, there are people who own retail data and say, okay, look, these are the number of outlets in Nigeria, this is where they are. Based on that, and also consumer data that says this is where they shop or where they buy, or this is what they have. You can have a straw map to say, okay, if I want to set a business to target this particular set of people, then I need to have the infrastructure to cover X number of outlets. I usually will say do this looking at a key cities approach. So if you look at the consumers and then you look at the spread of the population across Nigeria, where are the key cities that are economically viable, the key cities where you have the infrastructure that can support what you want to do. So I think for me, that's the first step, understanding the consumer, the retail universe, and where they are based on the key cities. And therefore, it gives you an idea of what's the kind and the level of coverage that you need to have for you to be able to access this. Now, then the question is, do I want to own my own infrastructure if I'm going to set up infrastructure? So how do I approach this market, right? The access to Nigeria, if you're coming in from outside, assuming you're importing, means that, okay, access is through the ports. The one with the most efficient, maybe access or service is the ports in Lagos. So do I have a central warehouse in Lagos, and then do I have distribution centers? At least that gives me coverage in the east and the north. So Lagos can cover the southwest for me, the north, and then in Abuja, and then somewhere in the east. It's a choice of whether I want to be in Port Harcourt or Enugu, one of the key cities in the east. Now, do I need to own this? Can I partner? There are distribution companies that exist who do warehousing. They have warehouses across the nation. So you can also decide to depend on them. Initially, it might be more expensive until you then set up your own structure. So for me, it would be prove the concept, set up my own, go with these partners whilst you're trying to build your own network, or find other partners that you can work with. Now, of course, you need systems. You can model some of these things on Excel, but if you have an ERP system, or you have systems that help you model your transportation, logistics, your inventory, the requirements, space management, and things like that. I think that's something that is critical. It's you need an ERP system. You need a system that can allow you manage your payments as well in terms of cash collections, um, payments direct into bank accounts, payments from accounts into your accounts, and how this is upgraded and automated. So you need a system that allows you to manage from payments to ordering to how you plan your routes, you optimize your routes, and then the logistics, managing the logistics capability. So, of course, you need to register the business if you're coming in stretch and you're registering as a logistics business. Registration in Nigeria, business registration is not so difficult. The process has been streamlined. This is something I believe now you can do within 7 days, right? You can actually get a business registered, and then you can start all the processes of putting everything in place. So it's register your business, understand the customer, consumer, the outlets you want to cover, have a map of what is required. Where do I put my logistics footprint? Think about, are there partners that exist today that I can leverage on? So rather than do it myself, can I leverage on somebody's infrastructure and then do that? Then do I have the technology to support me? Critical will be people. So all of these things will fail, and that's where I think the biggest challenge will be to find the right kind of people. There are quite a number of people, okay, largely within maybe most of the multinational businesses, because they tend to pay more and therefore hire the best people. And so for you to get the best people, you probably will need to pay an arm and a leg, except if you're bringing expatriates from outside. But there are certain local rules about expatriate quota. Therefore, the number of expatriates or the quantity you can bring locally. So I don't know if that answers gives an idea.
It answered the question. There is one more. So in the last mile delivery, especially when we talk about the e-commerce, okay, so there is a classical delivery and proof of delivery concept. Okay,
Yeah.
so that is one part. And there is some kind of value added service, like if you are buying a furniture, okay, so somebody has to come and do to fix it in the place or configure it based on your needs. Or if you are buying something like air condition, somebody has to come and fix it. Okay, so is it something like how this works? Like the last mile delivery operation and the value added service, both are done by two different people. So how is that work, Alex?
Depends on the category. So if you talk about furniture, most of the furniture manufacturers, especially the big ones, will actually do the installation themselves. Similar for the things like an air conditioner or an appliance that requires delivery. Most of the outlets that deal with this equipment will offer that as a service. Now, but aside from offering it as a service within the outlets themselves, sometimes when you order or purchase, they will also give you a list of other service providers, because if you want to take that service and pay for it, or if you want to get it because you have somebody who can do the same thing for you at a lower cost. So for me personally, if I want to do any of those things, because I have somebody who does that for me in my own house, all I just want is for them to deliver the equipment, because after it's done, that's the person who does the maintenance. Now, there are few providers who add that as a competitive edge. So they will tell you that, okay, the delivery and installation is a competitive edge versus somebody else who just sells you the product. Therefore, when you look at the price, you can say, okay, yes, they're selling me the product, but they're adding free delivery and installation as part of it. Some even add the installation parts as part of the service that they're offering.
Yep, I think that makes it complete. So for supply chain professionals and organizations who want to try the last mile delivery part. So what is your advice for next 2025? So just give some final thoughts, takeaways, Alex.
I think one, costs, because if you look at costs of energy, right? We've seen some massive costs increases in Nigeria. I think more than 2 or 3-fold. The question is whether it will stabilize or not. So that's something. So question of looking at saving ways of movement. Okay. The government has been trying to encourage things like CNG utilization. So it's there a shift from using petrol to compressed natural gas. One, from an environmental perspective, but secondly, from a cost perspective. I think that's one area that is critical. I think there needs to be consolidation. A lot of the small partners that are coming in, offering the same service within the same area, so you end up fragmenting or fighting yourself. So I think there has to be some kind of collaboration or mapping in such a way that you are having different areas where you offer the service and together you can work. So I think, yes, a number of them are coming up, a number are raising funds from venture capital. However, I think there's a point at which this cash will burn out. So the question is, how quickly do you get to profitability? That I've mentioned some of those examples. The question is, are they profitable today, and what's the pathway to profitability? So I think there's something around that collaboration. And then I think the last thing will just be around innovation. Try new ideas small, yes, because sometimes it seems as if things are not changing, but you can always, I think, have a pilot mindset. Try something small in a small area, see how it works, see some of the challenges, and on the back of that, start to move to implement. I've seen people try to bring new to world ideas here, and sometimes they fail, not because they're bad ideas. It's just the fact that there's some of the challenges that you need to understand and deal with, which is not on the surface. So until you're in that environment or applying that, will you see that, oh, this does seem like it was minor, but it's a major thing that impacts. Simple example would be people, for example. It's a critical part, so it's something that you have to think deep there. So for me, it would be innovation pilot, right, and then expand strategically.
Perfect. I think that's very insightful lecture, Alex. So thank you very much. So so if the participants have any questions, I will pass it to you. Okay, at the moment, okay, we don't have questions, guys. If you have questions, please post it. Let me check it. If you have any questions posted deep, you can post it on YouTube kind of thing. So let us pass it to Alex for answering them.